Yo, check, 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 check. Yo, check, 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 check. There we go. Yo, check, 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 check. There we go. Yo, check, 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 check. There we go. Yo, what's good, chat?
Insider Sam Quinn, because just like most of us, we were all just scratching our head this weekend and wondering, like, wait a minute, guys, we still got like 4 more days to get to the trade deadline. But Sam, I'm curious, your thoughts on all this craziness, Luka, the Fox, you got Zach LaVine. What was going on this weekend, man?
Yeah, I woke up yesterday morning to 37 texts. I was afraid to go to bed last night. I thought I might wake up and Nikola Jokic could have been on the Pacers for all I knew. It's probably the single craziest day of trades I've certainly encountered in my time covering the league. I mean, 4 All-Stars getting traded at once. We had some inkling that the Fox deal was coming. I think dating back to last week when we got the sense that Fox wanted to go to San Antonio, it was certainly trending in that direction. The Luka trade was so out of nowhere. I'm still processing it. I still think we're going to find out it was a prank. Like that was probably the most surprised I've ever been by a single trade. And we still have 4 days left before the deadline. Like, man, are we going to get another shake of the snow globe? Is anybody else available to get traded? I feel like anything's in play right now.
I mean, we may get traded for all that. I don't know where we might end up, Sam, but let's not speak that to the existence. Let's get to what we saw, though, and dive deeper into some of this. San Antonio may be building for the future with De'Aaron Fox now pairing him with Wemby. Your thoughts on that move?
Yeah, I think that's a great trade for San Antonio, especially when you look at it through the lens of what they still have, right? Like, you look at the return and you see they gave up 4 first-round picks. Those were relatively weak first-round picks. Their 8 most used players this season are all still on the roster. Their 7 first-round picks since 2019 that were on the roster are still on it today. They still have all of their best young players. They still have all of the core players in this year's rotation. They still have the bulk of their best draft assets moving forward. So in a sense, they got De'Aaron Fox without really materially changing their circumstances. And now they have Victor Wembanyama's sidekick in place without sacrificing any opportunity cost, right? Like, there are some iffy fits here as far as how he makes sense with the players that are already in place. He's not a great three-point shooter. Stephon Castle, not a great three-point shooter. Jeremy Sohan, not a great three-point shooter. They're going to have to figure that out. There will probably be moves that come in the next, either before Thursday's deadline, in the offseason, in the near future, that maybe clarify some of the roles in San Antonio, get a little bit more shooting through the door. But ultimately, look, it's pretty simple to me. You have a future MVP at center in Victor Wembanyama, and you now have an all-star at point guard in De'Aaron Fox. You can figure the rest out later. They have the assets to do so. This is an incredible trade for the Spurs.
All right, so with Swiper heading to San Antonio, in comes Zach LaVine to Sacramento, and you talk about, they lose a point guard, but you get a Zach LaVine who's been on the trade block for, almost 3 or 4 years. What does this move do for Sacramento moving forward?
I mean, I guess it helps them in their perpetual suit of the 8 seed, right? I mean, that team now with Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan feels pretty similar to those Bulls teams in the East that were making the play-in every year. And I sort of think to myself, like, are those really the teams you want to emulate? Really? Like, Domantas Sabonis a little bit better than Vucevic. You don't have an Alex Caruso. Keanu Ellis a little bit worse than him. It sort of seems like they're staying on this hamster wheel where they're trying to win 45 games every year, just be competitive. And hey, I guess if you miss the playoffs 17 years in a row, that's an admirable goal for you. But in my opinion, if you're trading a player like De'Aaron Fox, you should be trying to set yourself up down the line for real championship contention. You should be getting assets that could really vault you forward down the line. I don't think they did that here. I think they're a slightly worse version of the team that they already had. LaVine, obviously, a huge injury risk relative to Fox. I'm just a little confused at what the actual goal here is besides, stay average. So sure, they're going to be dangerous on any given night, right? Like, we know that LaVine and DeRozan are dangerous late in games. They're going to score in bunches. Sabonis having a very underrated season. The offense is going to be good. The defense is probably going to be pretty bad. And they'll be around 500. Not what I would have aspired towards if I was trading De'Aaron Fox, but I guess that's what they wanted to do given their years and years of futility.
Sam, we're looking at Chicago. I think we're all confused because you just mentioned, of course, those two teams are part of that deal. Maybe Chicago's the loser altogether and signaling a rebuild. I mean, it's been a rebuild for 4 or 5 years in Chicago. What are they doing?
Well, you know what the irony of this trade is for Chicago? The first round pick they got back was their own top 8 protected pick this year that they traded for DeMar DeRozan 3 or 4 years ago. Now, if you're the Bulls, the only reason you have to trade for this pick back is because you weren't tanking well enough to keep it in the first place, right? Like, if they had lost coming into this season at the rate that we thought they were going to and that they probably should have aimed to, they wouldn't have needed to trade for this pick. They could have traded Zach LaVine for things, external picks, external young guys, things that could have, really jump-started a rebuild. Instead, they're kind of starting from square one here, right? They're keeping their pick this year. They're probably going to be a lot worse without Zach LaVine. Maybe that gives you a better chance at Cooper Flagg or Ace Bailey or Dylan Harper, one of these great young stars in the draft. But I look at this trade and I sort of think to myself, like, man, given how well Zach LaVine was playing, I would have hoped to have gotten something external, not just ensured I'm keeping my pick that I probably should have kept anyway.
Well, it seems like the Bulls may not be done. I want you to take a look at this. A local beat writer there is saying, was just told the Bulls aren't done. They still have Vucevic and Lonzo Ball. I mean, Thursday is the deadline. Chances that we could see those two leaving the shine in your eyes, Sam.
Yeah, I would assume at the very least that Vucevic is going to get traded. I think anything is on the table right now barring, lottery pick Modest Buzelis. I think if somebody blew them away for Kobe White, they might take the offer. I think if somebody blew them away for Ayo Dosunmu, they might listen. Right now, the Bulls are very clearly trying to kick off a full-scale rebuild, get as bad as possible, try to draft well in the next few years, get a core player there that can kind of lead you forward. They haven't had somebody like that since, Derrick Rose, Jimmy Butler? It's been a long time since they've had like a consistent all-star level player. That's what they're trying to get. They're not going to get picks that'll get that level of player for the Vucevic's of the world, for the guys that they still have. But I do think they're going to keep trading. I think there's a market for Vucevic. And, you heard from Golden State last night that they're out on Jimmy Butler for the moment. I wonder if the Bulls are going to try to swoop in there, send them Vucevic for some of those assets, and that'll be their next big trade after this one.
Speaking of Jimmy Butler, it seems like not too long ago he said it was anywhere outside of Miami, but so far it's not Miami, it's not Golden State, it's not Milwaukee. What is the latest that's going on with him? Because it seemed like this should have been a move that happened this weekend with others.
Bro, that would be tough.
I think there's a little bit of a game of chicken going on right now where Jimmy Butler still very badly wants to get to Phoenix. The problem is nobody wants to take on the Bradley Beal contract. And even if somebody did, with Bradley Beal's no trade clause, he might not accept that trade. So I do wonder if Jimmy Butler kind of squashing any trade with any other team but Phoenix is his way of trying to pressure the Heat to be the team that takes on Bradley Beal. I don't think they're going to do that. Pat Riley is not somebody who gets bullied into making bad moves. They're trying to set up for cap space in 2026. Bradley Beal would compromise that. Now, it's only Monday. It's Monday morning. We have 3 full days left before the deadline gets here. I wonder if when we get to Wednesday night, Thursday morning, Jimmy Butler might see the writing on the wall and say, look, Phoenix isn't going to happen. They can't make this trade work. At that point, do I maybe signal to a Golden State or a Milwaukee or a Memphis? I'm a bit more interested in coming now that I know the Suns aren't on the table. I don't think these negotiations are done. I don't think it's going to be Phoenix. I think at the end of the day, we are going to see a trade where Butler accepts, you know what, the Suns are off the table, but maybe the Bucks, maybe the Warriors, maybe the Grizzlies. I have other good options.
Real quick, Sam, about 15 seconds here. If Bradley Beal says, you know what, I'm not going to Miami, would this shut everything down for Jimmy and he's stuck in Miami?
I think if Bradley said, I'm not going anywhere, I'm stuck, I mean, that's it, right? There's no legal way for the Suns to trade for Jimmy Butler without Bradley Beal in it, unless they're going to trade Booker or Durant, which they're not going to do. So at this point, unless there's some destination that Beal is okay with and is willing to take on Beal, it's over. There's just no other way to make the deal.
I mean, it's not like, Luka can't go in. Oh, wait, that already happened. Never mind. Sam Quinn, as always, appreciate your time about the association and tapping in on all the movement we saw this weekend. Don't forget.